This video brought to you by Squarespace. What's cooking, everybody? Dave Mays here with Jeven Dovey, and today we're talking about the camera nobody's talking about, except us, because we have them.
I actually kind of like it.
Yeah. We've got the EM1X here from Olympus. This is a $3,000 stills camera first, but both of us have been shooting video on it. We found a lot of cool things about it, and then some things that also aren't so cool.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a vlogger's dream camera, but at the same time, it's a little bit too expensive and too big, but it has good autofocus and it's very easy to use for vlogging. So it's kind of like in this weird in-between place. I actually really like this camera.
Me too.
But like you're saying, there is some quirks with it, and it is a stills first camera. This wasn't made to be a video camera, but it's got like amazing video features. So I've been shooting with this camera for a few weeks now. I've got one like right when they came out, and I've been using it for, you know, just playing around doing stuff like this, but I've been using it for a lot of my professional shoots as well. So I have a good, strong idea about how this camera works, and I like it. There are some things that I know a lot of you out there are gonna be like, well, it's big, it's micro four thirds,
it's expensive.
It's $3,000. But there are a lot of really good things about it.
As it should be, because it's $3,000, right?
But it's definitely a photography first camera. The photography features on this are pretty incredible. It shoots some insane amount of photos per second.
I think it's 15 in mechanical, 60 in electronic.
Yeah,
I think.
And you know, when you just hold down the trigger, it's like rapid fire, insane.
Yeah.
Like when you actually play it back, it looks like you're almost freezing the frame over the course of like 60 frames. It's pretty insane.
And the autofocus is really reliable for stills and even for video too. And that's kind of one of the big selling features of this for us as YouTubers. The fact that we finally have a camera with IBIS, with a flip screen that can shoot 4K with autofocus. All those things have never kind of come together. We really wanted that in the GH5,
yes,
but we didn't get it.
This is like the GH5 next step for vloggers. Now, it doesn't have everything the GH5 has.
Maybe it's more of a G9 for vloggers,
maybe,
right? Because you don't get 10-bit, you lose 4K 60, there's no anamorphic, there's no pro video features here.
But those features, I feel like, aren't as desirable for a vlogger, for a YouTuber. You know, the things that are most important if you're creating YouTube content is, you know, 4K, just because you want to have that 4K with good autofocus.
Yes.
Very good autofocus. And then also just making it easy to operate and work with. And that's one thing that I really like about this camera, is that basically there's a ton of buttons. There's 4 buttons right here in the front. You have all these buttons on the top, another wheel here, You got all these buttons on the back. So basically you can map out every feature that you need on the camera body and never actually have to go into a menu ever when you're out shooting.
And because these batteries are so big and so chunky, and we get 2 of them, you can pretty much shoot all day without ever having to die and change your batteries.
So last week I had a 4-day shoot. I was shooting a mix of photo and video on this, kind of, you know, picking this camera up and down and shooting. And over 4 days I didn't charge the batteries.
Wow.
So in terms of battery life, this thing has a lot of time on the batteries, and it's something that I really like about it, because you could shoot for a day or a couple days and not have to worry about switching out batteries.
So Jeven, you've been talking to me a lot about why you're a micro four thirds shooter, of the fact that you can get pro video with micro four thirds. A lot of people are so dead set on full frame, even APS-C, and they kind of poo-poo micro four thirds. Tell me about why you like micro four thirds and why you choose to shoot it.
So in general, micro four thirds is just a smaller system overall. Now this camera does have the battery grip, so it's bigger, but in general, the lenses and everything that surrounds micro four thirds makes it very desirable, because you can pop a bunch of lenses into your backpack and not have to worry about weight. You don't have to worry about having all this extra gear. This lens on here, which is, you know, a fairly decent sized lens, but small in terms of, you know, the world of lenses, this is a 12-100, which in comparison is a 24-200 millimeter, and it's a consistent f4.
With IS as well.
So if you were to get this in a full frame, you're talking like a massive lens that takes up your entire backpack. So you could have this lens and then a few primes that shoot at like a 1.2, and now you have a complete setup with every lens choice that you would want, plus having, you know, fast prime lenses so you can get that shallow depth of field. If you put like a speed booster, if you take a look at he's got an old manual lens, but he's got the speed booster.
Yeah.
And with the crop factor,
it's like a 1.3.
It's like a 1.3 crop, but you can see by the footage that we've been shooting today, it looks very cinematic. I think one of the biggest issues is that people always want full frame just for the fact of like cinematic, shallow depth of field, and the the truth is, if you just know how to pick the right lenses and know how to control your camera, you can get that same look out of a small Micro Four Thirds package, and you actually can have more options because you have all these lens choices.
Yeah, and when it comes to low light, that's also your problem. The noise on this camera, honestly, past 1600 can sometimes be an issue. That's where having a speed booster or a faster lens will help.
Yeah.
And obviously lighting. So in addition to all the features we were talking about that we really love, another thing that I personally really love is the weather sealing on this camera. I've actually heard from Olympus that this is technically the most sealed camera in existence. We've got this little door here, which reminds me of my 1DC that I used to have. This little flip out dual card slot, UHS 2 speeds, which is great.
And just overall, you could tell that they've put some effort into making sure that this camera is not going to get destroyed when you take it out there in the elements.
There are some negative things about it. We kind of mentioned the fact that there's just not some of those high-end pro features like 4K 60,
400 megs.
Yeah, for the HDMI out, you can get a clean signal, but it's only 8-bit. There's no 10-bit on this.
It's also not a full HDMI out.
It's a micro.
Yeah, I really don't like that. And some of the features that you would get on other cameras just aren't there. So like when you're shooting 120 frames per second, you can't change like your exposure. When you're shooting in any mode, you can't change your ISO.
Yeah.
So there's like weird little quirks about this camera, but it's also stuff that could be updated with software. So we'll see what happens when they start updating the software in this camera.
Yeah, I have a feeling that when Olympus was designing this, they were thinking mostly in the photo mindset, and they might not have had rigorous testing for video shooters.
Yeah.
Because they, thought maybe the only people that would buy this would be photographers.
True, but I think there's definitely a world of video shooters that this is perfectly suited for. I mean, it's definitely like, if you're going to Micro Four Thirds, this is the vlog camera to get. You don't even need to have like a tripod underneath. You can just hold it out.
Yeah.
And it works well.
It's easy to grip.
It's very easy to grip. Stabilization, autofocus.
Autofocus is the main thing.
Unreal.
It's really good.
It's very good.
It reminds me of a Sony or a Canon, really. I mean,
Yeah.
it's...
I like it. I'm gonna keep shooting with this camera. I know people probably think I'm gonna be crazy because I'm gonna be walking around with this, but...
I'll be with you on the sideline saying yes, EM1X.
EM1X.
Does your website look like something stuck in the 90s? Do you need a refresh? Then definitely check out Squarespace to give you a more modern and stylish look to your site. If you use the code KINO, you can actually save 10% off your first purchase. Thank you again, Squarespace, for sponsoring this video.
I think at the end of the day, 90% of people should not use this for video. But for that 10% where having autofocus for video is amazing, Micro Four Thirds, IBIS, flip screen.
Oh yeah, the flip screen, that's a huge bonus.
It's really, in a weird way, this camera is the only camera out there on the market that can do all those things.
And that still produces good looking footage, and
Yeah.
you don't have crazy crop, like the crop in this camera because it's a Micro Four Thirds. It doesn't crop additionally.
And the lenses are designed for that crop.
Yeah, here's the thing. In general, if you're curious about a camera and what it has to offer, I would highly suggest like going out there and renting one and trying it out for yourself, because this camera on paper, people were tearing it to shreds, but honestly, I'm really happy with it.
Me too.
Yeah.
So there are great lenses in this lineup. Micro Four Thirds does make sense. For now, this camera is kind of one of the better options.
I like it. And Micro Four Thirds isn't dead, so you don't need to go to full frame.
Well, Jeven, thanks for coming out to Laguna Beach. It was
Thanks
a
for having
blast
me.
hanging out. If you want more information on the EM1X, Jeven's gonna be doing a bunch of videos talking about the camera. He's already shot some videos, the B-roll video that I'll link below. And if you wanna have some angry things to say to us, comment below and let us know what you think of the EM1X. We'll have a dialogue with you guys about it. Do you wanna say anything here at the end, or any plugs?
No.
Okay,
I mean, I've talked a lot, so
cool. All right.
I don't know. Thanks for having me. You're a doll.
You're a doll. Once again, I'm Dave Mays. This is Jeven
Jeven.
the Dovey.
The Dovey. The Dovey?
See you next time.